to return to Washington. Now, I couldn't find a reason behind this. She spent a lot of years in Arizona. But in Washington, she met a man named Philip Lynne, who would become her future husband. The two of them had 3 daughters, Noelle, Brooke, and Reese, who were 12, 10, and 7 at the time of this case. Ingrid's greatest joy in life was being a mother to her young daughters. I even read an article that said she was an exemplary, I'm trying to compliment her and I can't even say it right, mother. She was described as a healer and a humanitarian, and she lived life large even though she was petite. In 2014, after an amicable divorce, Ingrid and Philip decided to go their separate ways. They shared custody of their daughters, and they had a really friendly relationship. Like, they went from being married to, like, being best friends. There were frequent messages and phone calls between them, and it was quite common for Ingrid to share the details of her personal life with Philip, because she saw him not only as her ex-husband or the father of her children, but as a great friend. Which I applaud, because some of these divorces end up in just disaster. So, Ingrid was working as a nurse at the Swedish Medical Center in Seattle, and this job demanded a lot of her time. And besides Philip, she could also rely on her mother, Georgia, for support. You know, they say it takes a village. The environment that they lived in was very family-oriented, but Ingrid decided to venture out. She missed having someone to share her life with. So at the time of the case, she is 41 years old. She decides it's a great idea to open herself up to love again, and she creates a profile on an online dating app. And she exchanged several messages with several men who she thought might be what she was looking for at this stage in her life. A loving partner who would accept her daughters, and someone who was interested in a serious relationship. She wasn't looking for like a one and done, which I feel like a lot of people on these like free, I don't know what dating app she signed up for, but they're just looking for kind of a hello, goodbye situation, if you catch my drift. So, a few days after signing up on this app, one man caught her attention. His name was John Robert Carlton. He was 39 years old. He lived in Seattle. He had a sister, and he was the son of military parents, so he had been raised with strict values at home. John's parents invested in him and his sister Shannon's education. They set quite high expectations for their children's future careers. However, during his teenage years, John began to deviate from these expectations. He seemed to harbor some repressed feelings, or maybe it's just because he had a strong personality. He was rebelling against his parents' strict upbringing. So, the troubled teenager grew into an adult, addicted to drugs. In 1997, he began to build what became an extensive criminal record. He accumulated offenses in 6 states, including convictions was John's first of many encounters with the law. A woman was sitting in her car with her baby, waiting for her husband outside of a bookstore. And suddenly, John approaches the car and orders the woman out of the vehicle. The police were alerted, and they pursued John on Interstate 15 to Riverdale, Georgia. After stopping at the store, he was arrested. At this time, he was sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison. However, due to legal loopholes, he only served 21 months. By June 24th, 2008, he was free again. And just a few months later, he committed his second robbery, this time in the state of Montana. And then accrued some assault charges in Idaho. The man got around. John was once again behind bars, and this time, after serving 3.5 years, he was released in 2012. John was described as handsome, charming, and seductive, at least according to several of his ex-girlfriends who gave statements to the police. And he used these things to his advantage. He realized that his appearance and demeanor could grant him success in other types of crimes. So even before all of this, he led an unstable life, and this didn't improve after he got out of jail. He rarely stayed with the same job for more than a few months, and he floated from state to state. But it was at one of these jobs he met a woman named Heather. The two of them had a brief romance. She said that he never directly harmed her, except for one incident where he choked her, and she really should have reported it to the police. People are so weird. But she had a strong sixth sense that something was off with this man. So after a while, she decided that she was going to trust her instincts, and she ended the relationship. Many women who had relationships with John, in addition to Heather, provided statements to the police. Their accounts revealed that he was violent and that he abused alcohol and drugs, which didn't help with his unstable lifestyle. Several of the women mentioned that it wasn't uncommon for him to sleep on the streets for days at a time, and he really didn't mind. And additionally, he enjoyed bragging about some of the crimes that he had committed, so he's a real winner. So at the time of Ingrid's case, John was alternating between sleeping on the streets for several days and staying at Heather's house, with whom he had managed to keep an informal sort of romantic relationship. So I read a couple different accounts that said that Ingrid and John had been chatting for about a month, but I couldn't find any actual information as to whether the two of them had met previous to the night that I'm going to tell you about now, or if this was their first encounter. I don't know any of the prior details to the night of Friday, April 8th. But they agreed to get together to go to a Seattle Mariners baseball game. A day earlier, on Thursday, Ingrid had told some of her friends about her plans. She had arranged her work schedule and managed to get the Saturday off in case the date ran late. She purchased the tickets. She asked Philip to take their daughters until the next day, and he agreed to pick them up. Ingrid and communication that if she decided to stay out or if there had been a change in plans, she would have contacted him. So Philip is already worried, and he decides to call Ingrid's mother, who quickly arrives at the house with her spare key. Together, they go inside, and they find Ingrid's purse and cell phone. Georgia begins to check the call history on her daughter's phone. She finds several records related to John. Apparently he had like a Montana phone number, and she sends him a text message. John replies, confirming that yes, he had met up with Ingrid, but he claimed that after the game, they parted ways and he went home. Except he's homeless, so I don't know what he's talking about. When Ingrid's mother informed John that she was going to notify the authorities about her daughter's disappearance, he seemed apprehensive and cornered. That afternoon, a little over 20 kilometers from Ingrid Lynn's home, a man named Mike Novassian was sorting out his trash that he was going to discard in the bins outside of his residence. And he found that it was odd that there was already white bags that were meant for organic waste in the bin outside designed for recyclables because it had just been picked up like the prior day, I think. Intending to correct what he believed was a neighbor's mistake, Mike decided to move the bags to the proper receptacle. However, as he picked up the first bag, he noticed that it was unusually heavy, and it was sealed in a particular way. Mike looked closer and realized that he could make out the outline of a face pressing against this white bag. Along with a neighbor, he opened the bag and discovered something even more horrifying. The two people quickly called the police, and within minutes, a squad arrived. Medical examiners found a leg, a foot, and half of an arm, and a human head in the 3 white bags. Now at this point, still unaware of Ingrid Lynn's whereabouts, her friends and family were conducting searches and spreading information, trying to help find her. Meanwhile, John shows up at Heather's house, and she notices that his lip is swollen. When she asks him about this, he claims that he'd gotten into a fight, defending himself from a mugging the prior night. Communication between police districts and the widespread sharing of posts containing Ingrid's photo quickly led authorities to kind of put things together. The human remains found in the white garbage bags were identified as Ingrid Lynn. Police issue a search warrant for her house to see if they can find any evidence. There they find a nearly empty box of garbage bags, matching those found at the crime scene. They discovered blood spatters in the bathtub, and most shockingly, a pruning saw with traces of blood, tissue, and bone found propped against one of the bathroom walls. Searches on Ingrid's personal computer allowed investigators to trace her last steps, leading them to a page purchasing the tickets for the baseball game the previous Friday. Since many crimes against women are committed by their current or former partners, Philip was their first suspect. My brain just derped. He was investigated but quickly ruled out. By the end of the following Monday, April 11th, Ingrid's car was found in a parking lot downtown in Seattle. 3 fingerprints shelters, couch surfs, or sleeps on the streets. Officers notice John's swollen lip. They also discover a head injury and scratches and abrasions on his body. The tone of their conversation begins to shift from friendly to investigative. When they mention Ingrid's name, he gets kind of visibly uncomfortable. He contradicts the version that he told via text message and says that after the baseball game, he and the woman he just met took a bus to her house. Somewhat confused, he tells the police he believes that they were intimate, but he couldn't clearly recall because he drank too much that night. Ingrid supposedly told him to leave as she did not want to introduce him to her daughters who would be there the next morning. She then drove him downtown, which she didn't have her car, so whatever, and dropped him off in front of a building. He added that the next morning he had sent a text message to her asking if she had slept well. Moments after revealing this, he asks for a lawyer. And what happens next kind of raises further questions about John's erratic and impulsive behavior. As soon as the officers leave the room, he spreads his coat out on the floor and takes a nap. Meanwhile, forensic results reveal that one of the fingerprints lifted from the car door handle belongs to John. Based on this evidence, his preventative detention was ordered, with his bail set at $5 million. After John's arrest, some friends and ex-girlfriends approached the police to assist with the investigation. Despite the fact that he's in custody, there's no actual concrete evidence placing him at Ingrid's house or directly identifying him as the perpetrator. On April 12th, the presiding judge rejected the defense's request, stating that John Carlton would remain in custody due to probable cause linking him to Ingrid Lynn's homicide. On April 18th, a man receives a call from his neighbor claiming to have found human remains in his trash bin. A torso with a belly button piercing was again wrapped in a white bag, and the body matched the victim's description. This prompted, which I don't understand why is a renewed search for evidence, because why weren't they still searching to connect John to the scene? Forensics teams returned to Ingrid's house to conduct a more thorough search for clues, and they attempt to reconstruct a timeline to determine the time and the cause of death. The bathroom plumbing was removed, and a significant amount of blood was found in the drain trap. A reagent called Blue Star was used to detect the presence of blood, was applied to the bathroom floor, revealing an attempt to clean up using bleach and other cleaning products. Ingrid's preliminary autopsy indicated the cause of death as homicidal violence. However, with each new body part uncovered, the forensic team discovers more details, such as petechiae in the eyes and marks on the neck. In addition, the toxicology report revealed she had not used drugs or taken any medication, and there was only a moderate amount of alcohol in her blood. It did not take long for the forensic experts to conclude with certainty that she had been suffocated and subsequently dismembered inside her own home. On October 2nd, 2017, he pled guilty to first-degree murder. While this act may seem to indicate remorse or regret, it was merely a defense strategy to expedite the trial and potentially reduce his sentence. Ingrid's family was words for Ingrid. She was remembered as a dedicated mother, a kind person, and someone always willing to help not only our patients, but anyone in need. The sentencing hearing took place January 5th, 2018. With his parents, Ray and Joanne, present, John gave a brief statement during the trial. He did not apologize for his actions, and he stated that there was nothing he could say or do to alleviate the suffering of the Lynne family. Philip Lynne, Ingrid's ex-husband, was granted the right to speak. He accused John of robbing his daughters of their childhood, depriving them of their mother's presence as they grew up. He added that Ingrid was a good person who never deserved such a horrific fate. He said that John had stolen his co-parent, sounding board, and his daughter's devoted, compassionate mother. There will be no more motherly advice from Ingrid. No more July 4th holidays. No more trips to the beach or Thursday night dinners at the stakeout, he said. His children's children will never have a maternal grandmother. Our daughters continued to thrive, but they missed their mother every day. Ingrid's good friend Nancy said there were no words to describe the horror that everyone felt after learning what happened to Ingrid. She wasn't just murdered, her body was brutally violated, she said. Nancy then called John a coward, saying that he ran and tried to hide, and then claims that he was too drunk to remember what he had done. No one believes that story, she said. You ripped a beautiful person, a vibrant mother, from her daughter. You took her from friends who loved her like a sister. John Carlton was sentenced to 27 years and 9 months in prison. Despite all efforts by his defense to reduce his sentence, Judge Julie Victor upheld the prosecution's recommendation, imposing the maximum penalty allowed under state law. This sentence was really poorly received by the public, and many considered it extremely unfair that someone who had committed such a heinous crime could be back on the streets at 66 years old. John himself never revealed motive, timeline, or the location of the remaining parts of Ingrid, and he is currently serving his sentence at the King County Penitentiary in the state of Washington. Now, this case just breaks my heart. I myself have often said that if Sean and I ever break up, I will not online date unless I get one of those accounts where you have to pay for it, because I feel like if you pay for it, you're more serious than looking for, just a casual hookup. However, it is so sad that the internet has just become like grounds for people to prey on other people. And it absolutely breaks my heart. This girl was just looking for love. She found this man who reminds me of Ted Bundy, basically, even the brown hair and the blue eyes. He knew he was attractive, he knew he could use it to seduce people, and he knew he could use it to his advantage, and he did. I don't have any theories as to why he did this to her. I wanna say maybe he tried to sleep with her and she said no. As far as I can tell, he didn't rob her of anything. There was never any talk of missing items or money. So I have to say that his motive wasn't robbery. This guy didn't care if he didn't have any money or any place to sleep. person for doing this to Ingrid. I can't imagine. So he drove around with her parts in the car and then stopped places, bundled her up in these trash bags, and threw her away as though she meant nothing. To me, I am absolutely bewildered at the fact that he would be allowed out of prison at the age of 66 when he very well could get out and commit even more terrible crimes against people. This man is a serial offender. Maybe not of murder, but he obviously is like a career felon. It just absolutely baffles me that we allow things like he did receive the maximum sentence in the state of Washington, so there wasn't really anything else that the judge could do. But we're so hard on some of these we're so hard on some of these crimes that are not that bad, like selling pot, and you're letting people serve years and years in prison, and then this guy is going to get out at 66. That just completely blows my mind. To me, this is one of those cases where it's like he didn't just kill her one time, And I was researching this last night to make sure I didn't miss anything, as I do before I record my cases, and I was then laying in bed just imagining him driving around in her car, and then imagining the pieces of her that were not found in a landfill somewhere. And I started to think about that Jennifer Dulos case with Fotis, and he did the exact same thing, only I don't think any of Jennifer was ever recovered. And it just breaks my heart to think of people in these landfills undiscovered by the police, or their families don't have any recourse, or you can't do anything. It's not like you can go to the landfill and search yourself. I'm glad that some of Ingrid was recovered so that her family knew what happened to her. I'm glad that it wasn't a huge trial where they had to hear every single detail of what happened, because I can't imagine knowing that the details of that happening to your family member. I imagine it is hard enough to go and sit in court and watch this man come in, either in shackles or just to sit there, probably smug and smiling as he appeared to be, and to just hear that he was going to get out at 66, and it just fries my cookies when these cases happen like this, because it's horrible, and we just continue to allow it to happen. I just want to say that I hope that Ingrid is resting in peace. I hope that her daughters are doing okay with their village surrounding them. Having lost my mother at, the age of 40, I can't imagine losing her so young and growing up without her. There are just times when you need your mom, and no one can replace that. And I am incredibly sorry to her 3 little babies who had to grow up without her. Thank you guys so much for being here today and all of the support that you have shown me. If you like this video, please leave me an emoji down below.